plenty of football yet to come for this Buffalo Bills team. It's only 1 week, but man, oh man, is there a lot of work to do. Welcome to Buffalo End Zone Podcast, everyone. I'm Kevin Carroll.
And I'm Jon Scott. There's a lot of people still stuck in what happened in the greater New York City area that happens to be in New Jersey Monday night because it was ugly, and as we said immediately afterwards, most of that falls on the shoulders of Josh Allen. And let me tell you, at practice here today, as things start to try to shift to the following week against the Raiders, remains about the Bills' superstar quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the guy. He looked like he was back as a rookie, John. Maybe midnight has hit for Cinderella there, and maybe Josh Allen isn't what he was thought to be going into this season. I was asked to give a rant during our podcast today. That's all I got, John. I'm not a rant guy, but there is a lot of issues with Josh Allen that we're seeing after game one, and a lot of stuff we talked about after the game that's obviously still lingering until we see them take the field again. And you put a poll out earlier in the week, and the responses, for one, were real fun to go through at how angry everyone is. I'll let you explain the poll.
Yeah, I put out a poll about 7:30 the morning after the game. So most of us, I would say, for work and other reasons, didn't get a lot of sleep after that Bills Monday Night Football game for whatever reason that may be. And I put it out early because I, too, was back to work super early. I always do these overreaction polls the day after the Bills games just to kind of poke fun a little bit, but to get a pulse from the fan base of how they're feeling, how they're reacting to what they saw the day before. I said Josh Allen owned it after 4 turnovers and a loss to the Jets. How concerned are you that the issues are bigger than just one game for the Bills quarterback? Very concerned, somewhat concerned, or not concerned at all. Very concerned, one at 45%, somewhat concerned 38%, not concerned 17%. That was 1,800 people who voted in that. So a substantial amount of people, and then there was a flood of comments afterwards, which I really appreciated, and it was a good insight to, again, get that instant, immediate reaction to how people feel about their quarterback. And as I said after the game, it would be a curious week to me to see the willingness of not Allen to take onus and be critical, but for the fan base and those outside that building to focus all of their issues with what happened against the Jets at the guy who usually is Teflon and impervious to criticism.
Right, but the one thing that I saw throughout the responses was Bills fans saying he can own it all he wants. We're sick of him owning it when it comes to games like this that he plays where he's a turnover machine, and actually fix the problem that he has where he can totally regress, John. And I still hang this one up to the Jets defense. I still give the Jets defense a lot of credit on how they have played against Josh Allen since Robert Saleh got there, especially the last 2 years at this point. But again, it's like most people said, own it all you want. Just stop doing it. It's frustrating to the fan base.
It's interesting to see them get criticism, but you're right. I think it's warranted here. And you mentioned the recent history that he's had against the Robert Saleh New York Jets defense here, and I pulled it up. We understand they lost the first matchup a year ago, 18-34, 205, 2 interceptions, sacked 5 times, had 2 fumbles. Then they win 2012 in week 14. He's 16-27, 147, a touchdown, and that's not great. Yeah, he was efficient, but it certainly wasn't great. And then 29-41, 236, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 5 sacks in that one. I think that it's a weird place for me, especially with what I saw in this one, and even in that first game last year, of how much you're going to put on the Jets' defense and how much you're going to put on Allen just making stupid decisions. It's weird because we discussed it afterwards. I thought back to that first interception he had a year ago where big play to Diggs out the gate, and then he throws one in the boundary that, at least from my seat, and I think even the broadcast, it was clear as day there was a guy who was undercutting him.
Yeah, I remember
plain
that,
as day. And then these 3 interceptions on Monday night this year, it's clear that these guys are not open, and whether it's help over the top or someone underneath, and the receiver was blanketed one-on-one anyways, I do give credit to the Jets defense for a lot of the things, but these mistakes by Josh Allen just seem like he's playing this game of, I think I can be Superman, and he can.
Right.
But there is a time and place for that, and when we spoke with him this afternoon, that seems to be what he's falling back on. I know talk is talk, and Allen even admitted it. I can keep talking about this, but I got to prove it. But it's this double-edged sword. He has this incredible ability and talent to make plays that nobody else in the world can make, and that's what makes him great. And it's constantly maybe going to be this juggle throughout his entire career of, does he have an appropriate gauge on when to fire those shots as opposed to dialing it back, taking what the defense is given. I don't even think it was about trying to take shots. I just think it was like the stupidest decisions you could possibly make in Monday night.
Right, and I even go back to one of the interceptions. I think after the game I thought it was the second deep one, but now that I look at it, maybe it was the first, where he had plenty of room to run and pick up 20 yards. And again, to me, it just seems like that's part of the decision-making process he's having an issue with, of the heat on him not to run and be careless and get himself injured, stuck in his head, and it's like he chose the wrong time to run in the Jets game. He made a run, tried to do his Josh Allen leap over a couple of guys, got lit up, and then on a play where he clearly could have picked up the first down, plus he chucks the ball downfield into double coverage, and it gets intercepted. And then you don't learn from that again later on, just to not do that, to eat the ball. And we won't get into the interception when he was targeting Gabe Davis, but it just that entire night, and they talk about, well, we're going to learn from this. It doesn't seem like in-game, when Josh Allen's off, there's in-game learning whatsoever going on.
And that's how we're going to evolve the conversation from the immediate, obvious things of the post-game to days later, especially after hearing once again from Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, is how does he avoid this? And part of that is who is in his ear on the sideline coaching him through this, getting his mind right, all of that. There was that video, especially before, I think it was the final drive, of Diggs going up to Josh Allen and saying, flush it, essentially. We don't know exactly what he said, but making sure that his quarterback and he giving him some support. He mentioned Deion Dawkins, Mitch Morse, Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, guys that have been and played with him for years, as guys, at least in the aftermath, that have come up to him and that he almost leans on to, so to speak, help carry him through and keep his spirits high. On the field, though, or in the game, on the sidelines, is where I kind of want to focus a little more, because Brian Dable, before he went up into the booth, used to be, I think, that guy. And then when Dabes was in the booth, it was Ken Dorsey.
Right.
So Ken Dorsey was the guy. So now that Ken Dorsey's ascended into the offensive coordinator role and is in the booth, Joe Brady, from a coaching standpoint, would be that guy that would, from a coaching side of things, be the one in his ear along with Dorsey over a headset. It's just curious, who is the one, and does he need it at this point in his career, now at the beginning of his 6th season, to have someone?
He shouldn't.
And I think he even said that. He admitted, he said, hey, I'm in year 6. I shouldn't have to continue to learn not to do these types of things. I think it has to just fall on him. I don't think it would be appropriate or necessary to try to bring other people into, they need to help Josh change.
he's a veteran quarterback now. He shouldn't need the help, whether Dorsey's in the booth or Dorsey's on the sideline. It's time in Josh Allen's career with you've ascended to being one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. And if Ken Dorsey's more comfortable sitting up in the booth than being down on the sidelines so he can see the field, so be it. That's the way it is. And you got to figure this stuff out yourself. This idea of needing people to keep him in check just kind of drives me nuts, John. It's like, where are we at with one of the best quarterbacks in the league? Like, could you picture someone saying Patrick Mahomes needs someone on the sideline to get him in the right place? Or Tom Brady? Or pick your top quarterback. It just doesn't seem like where he is as he's viewed around the league as a top 5 quarterback, that this should be something that would be even something tossed around at this point.
I agree. I think if you want to divert the conversation into who needs to be better to help Josh Allen be better, fine. Let's have that conversation about what Ken Dorsey is doing to try to support Allen. Is it on Ken Dorsey to conceptualize things better, call different plays that will cater more to Josh being smarter or making the decision-making easier for him, that guys are open? My counter to that would be there were guys open on some of these plays. He decided to go elsewhere with the football, and I think that's the challenge and where I pull back on the idea that Ken Dorsey had any real prominent role in the way Josh Allen performed. There are other instances in the game where I think it's fair to be critical of Ken Dorsey, but I don't necessarily think that's why Josh Allen threw those 3 interceptions. Allen did, and I think there's part of this, say that the situations, they were like 3rd and long, a lot of them, where he made these decisions. Although I don't think the 3rd one was really 3rd and long. I think it was actually 3rd and intermediate or something.
Yeah.
Regardless, I feel that maybe their first down success rate was pretty poor, and then that had them kind of running uphill the rest of the way. And then maybe in Josh's head, when it's not 3rd and manageable, he just automatically gets in that mindset that even if it's 3rd and 8, he's still, for whatever reason, thinking 35-40.
Right. Immediate overreaction from that game was from some to put the blame on Dorsey. Another reaction as we move forward into the season, which is something that was talked about last year, is that second wide receiver or that second pass catcher being more involved in the offense. We see a ton of Stephon Diggs, but moving forward, need to see more. And to me, John, that's also on Josh Allen right there. That it's not, when you look at some of the game and you go back and look at it, where you're not just locked in on Josh Allen and where the ball goes, you actually look at how the play develops, that there were options that Josh Allen had throughout the evening that he just did not go to. And I think it showed in that stat line. And moving forward, however you want to view whatever, if you're still worried that Stephon Diggs might still snap at any second this season if he's not getting fed, that Josh Allen needs to take the open man, knowing that they have, or they put pieces at least, John, in place to give him more options. And I don't think he took advantage of it. And it's something, going up against the Raiders team that he should focus more on and be more of someone who takes what's there.
This is where it's challenging to properly give an opinion on where the onus falls because you don't have all of the information. Even if you're looking at an all-22, you can probably, these people that are smart and know how to watch film can surmise some things. But if you don't know what the play call is, you don't know how it was practiced, you don't know what all of the assignments are, even with an all-22 eyesight, for lack of a better term, you can't necessarily say, well, Josh should have done this or this receiver should have done this. I mean, there is one play I heard someone talking about where it was actually a completion, but Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis were literally almost on top of each other.
That was right before the touchdown, yeah.
And I'm thinking, who is that meant for? I still don't know.
Right.
Now, that a concept error? Is that someone ran the wrong route? These are things that you just don't know what happened. Were they just happened to be in the same spot because the routes and play couldn't progress long enough and Josh threw it? I have no idea. So that's where this whole secondary option is. Is it because Josh is so focused on throwing it to Diggs that he's not looking for them? Is it because Dorsey's not scheming up well enough the second and third options or making plays where Diggs is, for lack of a better term, a decoy and trying to clear space out for other people? I don't know the answers to those questions. I just think you could simply say they need to find a better way to have a secondary pass-catching option be more prominent in the offense.
Right.
Whoever that is, Sean McDermott admitted and said so himself the day after the game that it is very important that running back, receiver, tight end, whoever, there needs to be someone that can play second fiddle to Stephon Diggs. It's important, as McDermott said, you got to feed the number one Diggs, but you got to have that secondary option to play off of him, and no one popped. It was all Stephon, and then everyone was like 4 targets the rest of the way, and that, again, could be on Josh, or it could be on the play calling.
Yeah,
absolutely. Or the players themselves. Again, maybe they weren't getting open, so he didn't throw it.
Yeah, absolutely. John, obviously the Bills are not going to be facing the same pass rush this week against the Raiders that they did against the Jets. You know, a lot of work during this offseason to get an improved offensive line. How do you look at this offensive line then as we move forward after facing a really tough pass rush with the Jets? I mean, I thought for the most part, other than Spencer Brown, it was decent.
Yes. I said this after the game. I don't want to take a cop-out once again. That's a really good Jets defensive front. It's a really good Jets defense. This is where I would tend to give the credit to the Jets defense and the way they performed and the talent that they have on there, as opposed to some of the mistakes Josh Allen did in putting that because of what the Jets did. That defensive front's loaded. They're great, and they caused issues a year ago. There's some new pieces on the Bills' offensive line. They won some, they lost some, but I'm not going to, 5 sacks, but some of those, I mean, Josh, that one he tried running up the middle, he seemed to bail early and ran right into a sack. They weren't great, but that's a heck of a test to have. I think the one shining moment, and Sean McDermott even said so, was Osiris Torrance, was someone for a rookie. He kind of joked and laughed and said, man, we really threw him into it from the jump there to have to go against Quinnen Williams and others on that defensive front. I think he held up well. Spencer Brown said today some he'd like back, and Sean McDermott has said that as well. I want to see them perform against the Raiders. They have Max Crosby, who had a sack in the opener, who is a perennial Pro Bowler, one of the best pass rushers in football. How do they handle him?
Yeah.
You'd like to see a strikingly cleaner game for Josh Allen because it's an inferior, not as good defensive front with the Vegas team.
Chandler Jones, who is
weird,
hating management out there.
It's just a weird situation. I tried reading up on it a little bit.
I did too.
And it was hard to follow. Obviously, he put some stuff out there on social media that was critical of the organization. Then there was some sort of a call to his house about distress and things like that. Whatever the details are that I'm not really solid on, just the fact is he's not with the team.
Right.
Josh McDaniels said he doesn't think that that's going to change heading into week 2. So a prominent pass rusher that we talked about here pretty heavily going into that offseason as a potential guy that they sign. They ultimately go bigger with Von Miller. You know the talent that he has, so that's going to be a big miss and something that the Bills will luck out in terms of one less prominent pass rusher to have to deal with on Sunday.
Yeah, and so as McDaniel said, he doesn't expect him out there, and the Raiders are pretty banged up. As we hit Wednesday, Mitch Morse, the only one on the Bills injury report with a finger injury, but did take part in their walkthrough.
Full participant. So he was
Yeah.
just listed. They're required. He got looked at after the game. I know one of our producers during the game noted in our chat here at work that he was kind of flexing his finger, got it looked at after the game. I forget the exact reasons if you're a full participant out the gate, why they have to list it. Maybe it's just because it's there. I'm not particularly sure, but
I think if it was looked at in any way, then you have to go on the report.
So there it is. It's a finger. It was a light walkthrough on Wednesday, listed as a full participant. Nobody else is listed. If he's a full participant now, he's going to play. So all things considered for the negatives coming out of Monday Night Football, good to see that the Bills healthy at least. And as you said, they're facing a team that's not as fortunate.
Yeah, so Jimmy Garoppolo, limited, dealing with an ankle. It's early in the week, John. This would be the Bills' first go against Jimmy Garoppolo because when he was named the Patriots starter, when Tom Brady was suspended years ago, he got injured before the Bills game, and Jacoby Brissett ended up playing. So this will present the Bills with their first chance to go up against Jimmy Garoppolo, who's limited, who was good, went to the 49ers, got them to a Super Bowl, and then after the Super Bowl, it was like the 49ers didn't want him anymore, and now here he is rejoining Josh McDaniels, who was his OC when he was with the Patriots. So some familiarity for the Bills there a little bit.
I think the McDaniels scheme is something that they can revert back to and can say we have some experience in what he likes to do, and that's maybe more of what they'll lean upon. I asked Leonard Floyd today what makes Jimmy Garoppolo, what does he do well? Because let's be honest, ever since he was in New England, basically all you ever hear about Jimmy Garoppolo is what he doesn't do well. You never hear what the guy does.
And how good-looking he is.
True, yes. My wife adds that too, yes. Jimmy Garoppolo is a good-looking man. And Leonard Floyd said he just has a good grasp on the offense. He knows what to do, and he gets the ball out quick. And I think that's something that if he plays in the game, that will be an interesting dynamic because that obviously is used to mitigate a pass rush, something that we discussed immediately after the game, and I continue to feel was one of the bright spots of the Monday night performance against the Jets. Leonard Floyd in particular was absolutely phenomenal. I think they got good contributions and push from a lot of the guys on that defensive front, and just to see the positive change, for lack of a better way of putting it, from almost a very poor performance after Von Miller got hurt from the front four at the back end of last season, to see them able to do that against, as we said and noted, not a very good Jets offensive line. Doesn't matter. The Bengals was a banged-up offensive line in that playoff game, and they produced no push. Good to see that. Let's see what they could do against the Raiders offensive front, who did not allow a sack last week against the Denver Broncos, who has a pretty good defense themselves. Let's see what they could do with their front four and maybe try to mitigate what Garoppolo likes to do. And again, that's get it out quick.
And as far as the pass catchers go, Jacoby Myers now with the Raiders, he missed practice. He's in concussion protocol. So who knows what's going to happen there. Devontae Adams missed practice as well with a foot injury, John. So even at that, you have the quarterback banged up and the top two pass catchers on the team banged up for a defense that held its own in the opener.
19 of the 26 pass attempts by Jimmy Garoppolo went to Jacoby Myers or Devontae Adams. So you'd expect it from Adams. The dude's a monster. He had a great year last year in his first year in Vegas. That was with Derek Carr. He sees 9 targets, 6 catches, 66 yards in the opener in his first game with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jacoby Myers was the real star in that one. 9 catches, 81 yards, 2 touchdowns. We've seen him in New England. He's a fine wide receiver. I wouldn't say he's great good.
I've always bagged, I never got it with, I know when he was out there, there was talk maybe the Bills should go after Jacoby Myers, but I never got it, but he had a good game.
He had a good game, and as you said, he's dealing with a concussion now, so both of those guys going to be working their way back to try to get onto the fields. And as I said, 19 of the 26 pass attempts to those two guys. Beyond them, it's slim pickings here. I mean, I don't really know where they would go. You have DeAndre Carter, Christian Wilkerson, Trey Tucker, Hunter Renfrow. I mean, you're just not.
Hunter Renfro's still there?
He's still, exactly. And so that's where, do they shift more to the tight ends? Austin Hooper, Michael Mayer's the tight end we talked a lot about pre-draft process. Or, as I'll help you transition, do they just lean on the running game, which, I'll be honest, wasn't that impressive in the opener?
Yeah, the Bills' run defense, we saw them get gashed a couple of times, and you have Josh Jacobs, the Raiders' main back. He's no easy guy to get down, John. So that would be, when you look at what the Bills' defense is going to have to deal with on Sunday against the Raiders, maybe that's a focal point at this point because, again, I don't want to keep going back to the Jets game, but as you joked around, Jets could give Breece Hall the ball every down right now, and they'd probably work their way down the field.
Micah Hyde made a note today that said there really were only a couple plays that the defense played poorly. And I think we noted that after the game. Breece Hall had 2 carries for 109 yards to start the game. 83-yarder certainly going to bump that up. Then after that, he was held in check decently. Now, part of that, he was held in check by his own offensive coordinator because they wouldn't give him the ball, which was shocking. And maybe there was some sort of a pitch count because he's coming off the knee. Dalvin Cook's running wasn't particularly spectacular. I think he averaged about 3 yards a carry. So maybe it was truly just a couple plays where the alignment wasn't great by the Bills' defense, and their tackling was bad on a couple of those. And it was bad by some guys that it's rare. I mean, Jordan Poyer, I think, on the big play might have been in the mix, or one of these chunk runs, I think, was something. So it's something that at least they're presenting it as seemingly very fixable. And Josh Jacobs, as I said, he had 19 carries for 48 yards against Denver. It's 2.5 per carry. Curious to see if he can do better than that, and this will be a test for the Bills' run defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Hey, before we get to the game itself, Raiders practicing out here on, well, I don't want to say the East Coast, in West Virginia. I was thinking that them traveling twice on the road, once to Denver, and then having to come out to Buffalo, but it seems like they did the right thing in there, practicing down in West Virginia, and will stay acclimated to our time.
Weren't they in Denver, or didn't they play out west, the first one?
I thought that was in Denver.
Right, but Denver's out west. That's what I'm saying.
Well, Denver's in the middle of the country, and then instead of going back to Vegas, they came to West Virginia.
Yeah, I don't really get it. They're like in the same time zone. But, you know, some people like to do this. Usually, Vegas and Denver.
Oh, I'm talking about West Virginia in Denver.
Right. What I'm saying is usually when people stay out or go out to a different place to practice, it's because they're doing back-to-backs and they don't want to travel. That's what I find peculiar about this, of like the Bills prior to when I got here, when they had back-to-back West Coast games, they just stayed out west. When I worked in Ohio in Youngstown, the 49ers under Jim Harbaugh would do this often, of when they had back-to-back games out east, they would stay in Youngstown because their owner's from Youngstown, and they'd spend a week there so they're not traveling back and forth. This is kind of weird to me.
All right. I mean, I get it. Why not? Why go back? Why not just go further east?
But why go back? They never were out here.
But
That's
you're
what I'm
still
saying.
going further west to go to Vegas from Denver.
It's like a 30-minute flight.
It's not like Denver is right next to Las Vegas.
It's pretty close.
Oh, we need to pull a map up, and we don't have time for that. We'll agree to disagree on that. I think it's interesting that they just decide to come out east and not go to Vegas. But again, what do I know? I know this, John. I owe my dad some money because he listened to the podcast last week, and we said take the Bills and the over. So he's going to get a fresh check for $2 from me that he lost out on by listening to us. But we have game day time, John, for the Bills. As you look up the distance between Vegas, gosh, I hope you're wrong while I sit there going through this. I deep down in my soul, I feel that flying back from Denver to Vegas just didn't make as much sense as coming out here and going to West Virginia for wherever they are down there and getting acclimated to a 1 o'clock kickoff time, because that's different on Sunday. And on Sunday against the Raiders, John, despite the Bills' dud on Monday night and the Raiders getting a win at least on the road in Denver to start the season, Bills minus 9.5 going into this game, and I just have no faith that the Bills could dominate a team like that. And I don't think maybe the Bills win, but not by more than 9.5 points.
I'm going to go counter. I think that you see a strikingly more patient and efficient Josh Allen, and that will propel them to maybe like a 13-point win.
Okay. By the way, this coming off of BetMGM, over under 47 points, John. And I'll stay with the under and stay with my feeling right now. It doesn't look like the Raiders are going to put up many points. And I think at this stage in the game after Monday night, maybe the Bills just go and they're like, let's just get the W. Don't need to blow them out of the stadium. Let's just get the W and move on with it.
I'll take the under. I think that's as much because of the Bills' defense as the Bills' offense as well. I agree. I think they'll be efficient. I don't necessarily think, if you're talking about trying to temper the big play trigger of Josh Allen, that you're going to really try to call it deep down the field and take some big shots and some quick hitters. So maybe some sustained drives, maybe, kind of these 10, 12 players that milk some clock. And I think I'm going to have to do the math for my score here shortly, but I feel like the under is the play.
Yeah, under's the play. 24-7, the final for me. Bills come out on top. And yes, that goes against let me go back. Oh, man. I can never get this stuff straight. So 17-10, Bills get the win.
I'm going to go 27-10.
All right, fair enough. There we go. 3 and out before we head on out, John. Overreaction from week 1. You can take it any way you want. I think there's been an overreaction to how good the Miami Dolphins actually are. It's week 1. Things can look one way during week 1, and then it just kind of unravels. We don't really know what the Chargers have, and if that was an actual tough game. The Dolphins' offense looks great, but maybe against a better defense. And maybe we see that after the Bills game, Sunday Night Football, and this will be of interest to the Bills fans after Patriots-Dolphins on Sunday Night Football. And you could have everyone at 1-1 at the end of the day on Sunday, or see the Dolphins at 2-0 and in control with the Patriots, as many expect, at the bottom. And again, I know it's only week 1, but I don't know. Be interesting to see more from this Miami Dolphins team against other opponents, and maybe a little bit of an overreaction to how great they actually looked.
I'm going to do 2. I'm going to do one that's probably not really in the sphere of things that matter for the Bills, and then I'll do one that I think does. The one that I don't think really matters, I think Jordan Love's good. I think Jordan Love looked good. That's going to be something where you take a great performance week 1, and if you're going to react to it, I think that this is sustainable. I don't think and I'm not placing him saying, oh, he's the next Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, Hall of Fame type quarterback, but I think he's a good quarterback that can make the Packers relevant and competitive and push for the playoffs. And they have an interesting young core, and they're intriguing to me. And I think it was a good start. The Bears stink. Let's be real. The Bears stink. But I think it was good, encouraging, and I think Jordan Love is going to be good. The other one I'm going to say is this. The pass catchers for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think you can be questioned. You could think it's questionable.
For sure.
And I understand that it looks like Travis Kelce's trending on returning to the field, and naturally, when your best player is not on the field, everything else gets amplified. And it's not just because Kadarius Toney dropped a bunch of balls and it was terrible. I like Sky Moore coming out of the draft, and I'm not saying he's not going to be a fine player, but I just don't. It may just be a bunch of guys, and this is going to be a true test of, even when Kelce returns, is there enough out there that Patrick Mahomes can just continue to make them be good? We saw Peyton Manning seemingly take guys like Austin Collie and Pierre Carson had a nice career, but they weren't prolific guys. We saw what Brady did with a bunch of kind of guys that weren't expected or thought of as these elite type receivers, and clearly became some of the best players of all time.
Right.
I feel like this group more than ever kind of suits that and fits into that little nook of, does he have the horses, or is he going to have to make them truly better?
Okay. You bring up Travis Kelce, so I'm going to bounce the order of our 3 and out here. And Travis Kelce now hanging out, we'll say, with Taylor Swift, John. Quite the thing going on with that. Is Travis Kelce now maybe even more distracted as the season rolls along with his off-the-field issues? We've seen that with players before. Maybe we've even brought it up with Josh Allen, that a lot of off-the-field stuff going on. But does T Swift or Swifty or whatever you guys call her play a role in how Travis Kelce's season plays out?
No, but if he wants any sort of music career, she's clearly going to write a song about him, and it'll be a big hit.
Yeah, maybe it'll be about how he picked football over her or something fun like that. Is that something? I don't know. I haven't listened to new music since 2009.
I'm not a Swiftie. My wife is. We tried getting tickets, just like many. It was impossible and failed.
Don't worry. It's in movie theaters. You guys can go watch it in a movie theater. Finally, what was number 2? This is becoming an issue again, John. Grass versus turf after Aaron Rodgers' injury at MetLife Stadium. 2 games played on back-to-back nights there with pouring rain, and NFLPA Executive Director Lloyd Howell is now looking for all fields around the NFL to be grass. We've had this conversation before on why I hate games in domes and hate games being played on the artificial surface just by how it looks and is presented on TV. I'm all for it, for safety-wise, for look-wise, the whole thing across the board. I just never – the artificial surface is way better than when I played, where it was like playing on cement or this rug in this room right here. But I'm all for it. What say you?
I love natural grass. I think it's really cool. It's clearly something that the players – we heard Josh Allen, Micah Hyde – be open about it, even Sean McDermott. There's a reason that the practice fields at the Bills are grass, and there's a reason that the only time they really do turf is the Friday before a home game is
right.
when they're on there. There's a reason at St. John Fisher they don't practice like they did during the Rex Ryan years and even Doug Moreau.
They didn't use it once.
They don't use it, the turf field. They use the 2 grass fields. The only people who use the turf are the special teamers while practice is going on, because they always have their own little space of sorts. At Orchard Park and One Bills Drive, they'll either go into the stadium or into the field house, which are both turf. It's clearly a money thing. I mean, that's why you do it. It's easier to maintain, and especially in climates like this where it snows and you deal with weather, then you're not having to really figure out how to keep it from not being a slop fest and things like that. Technologies are evolving, as Josh Allen pointed out. The new stadium is going to have a grass field. This is something that I just can't see changing instantaneously the way the NFLPA is pushing.
Right.
But I did not know, and it's a very valid point. I didn't know that these venues that are hosting the World Cup and have hosted soccer events that have turf swap it out so they can host the soccer event and then put the turf back in. I didn't know that. It takes a while to put turf in. I wasn't aware of that, but it's a money thing. Who's going to pay to not only take the turf out, put grass in, but then pay for how much it costs for the upkeep?
Right. It's interesting because there are a number of teams that I can think of off the top of my head that have made the switch. I know in Foxborough, they were natural grass forever, and then they had a tough ending to a season on a bad field, and it was changed the next season. I think Baltimore has gone back and forth on their playing surface a few times, which I don't know. You've been there. I thought, and this sounds made up to me, but I thought they had like a hybrid, half natural surface, half some sort of fake thing, but I might just be making that up, but I think the surface has changed there, so it just makes sense overall to eventually get there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard of these hybrids, but I don't know. I'm not an agriculture type guy. The only thing,
like over in London, a lot of the soccer but maybe they mean the sidelines are artificial.
I'm not sure. I mean, I know places like Vegas and Arizona, they wheel in and out because they're domes. Technology has evolved enough that they can make it work. It's all a matter of what you have to pay. I mean, in these look at Pittsburgh. They host the Pitt Panthers as the home team, plus the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look at Hard Rock Stadium. They
high
host
school state championships.
They host a variety of games, and there are sometimes concerns, and even you see it play out with footing when there's two games back-to-back or things like that. So it's not perfect. But if you're going to, I think the root of it is, if you're going to hammer player safety as much as they have in terms of changing rules and equipment and all of that, then you have to be consistent and go with a surface that the players resoundingly are telling you, based upon how their bodies feel, is a better, safer surface for them. Of course, we all know the people who have the money, they don't necessarily always like to listen to the people who are actually in the mud.
Yeah, I think we all know that, and I wasn't expecting us to talk about playing surfaces for that long, but there you go. Bills hosting the Raiders week 2, looking to right the ship, as they say. John and I will be back here with the Buffalo End Zone postgame show, along with Fred Jackson, former Bills running back on Spectrum News 1, and then John and I with a postgame podcast coming your way. You can find it where you're listening to it or watching it right now. That coming up on Sunday. As always, thanks for tuning in, everyone.